So who is Alvaro Bautista anyway? Alvaro Bautista entered the Grand Prix Motorcycle World Championship in 2004 with Aprilia. Between 2004 and 2005, he had a fairly successful career with 3 podiums. During the 2006 season, he had a breakout performance culminating in 14 podiums, 8 wins, and won the 125cc World Championship after a season-long battle with Andrea Dovizioso. The 2007 season would see Alvaro move up to the intermediate class. He was almost immediately on the pace and podiumed 3 out of the first 4 races. Inconsistency and retirements would plague him towards the end of the season and resulted in him slipping to 4th in the final standings, finishing with 2 wins and 7 podiums. The 2008 season would be his best season in the intermediate class, finishing 2nd in the standings behind the late great Marco Simoncelli. Although he had a win in the 3rd round of the season, he struggled in all the other early races. The slow start to the season set him back quite a bit, and he finished the season with 4 wins and 11 podiums. The 2009 season was decided by consistency. He wasn't particularly inconsistent, this was more of an issue where he wasn't as consistent as others. Hiroshi Oyama blitzed him to the title with only 4 wins and 7 podiums. However, he had no retirements and his lowest race position was 7th. Alvaro finished the season with 10 podiums, 2 wins, and 3 retirements. This saw him slip to 4th in the standings. Alvaro did more than enough to warrant a jump into the premier class of MotoGP, and signed onto a 2-year deal with Suzuki for the 2010 and 2011 season. Now there's only 2 things you need to know about Suzuki and MotoGP. They leave the sport every time they get a new CEO, and half the time when they are there, it feels like they aren't trying at all. Unfortunately, he joined Suzuki during one of those down periods, and it showed in the final results. He obliterated his teammate Loris Caprasi during the 2010 season. For the 2011 season, Suzuki only ran a single bike due to them leaving MotoGP at the end of the year. He finished 13th in both seasons. After Suzuki pulled out of MotoGP, Bautista remained in the sport riding a Team Gresini Honda. His teammate Michele Pirro rode a completely different CRT spec chassis. This was the start of his best period in MotoGP. He was with the team for 3 seasons and achieved 3 podiums, finishing 5th, 6th, and 11th in the final standings. For the 2015 and 2016 season, Bautista would remain with Team Gresini. However, Aprilia would kind of halfway purchase Team Gresini. They'd provide factory bikes, but the day-to-day operations would be handled by Gresini. Aprilia hadn't been in the sport for a while, except for a half-hearted entry into the CRT category. It was a far cry from their current MotoGP form. The team was nowhere near the front, and he slipped to 16th and 12th for the next 2 seasons. He would lose his ride at the end of 2016. 2017 and 2018 would see Alvaro move to the Aspar Ducati team, and would be much more competitive than his prior team, Aprilia. The important thing about this generation of MotoGP is that Ducati made all of its customer teams use year-old bikes. His equipment was very good, but nowhere near the factory teams. He would finish both seasons in 12th with a best race result of 4th. However, this would be his last season in MotoGP. For 2019, Alvaro moved to World Superbike. While it's a highly competitive series, it has a reputation for being a retirement home for former MotoGP riders. He continued on with Ducati, who had a seemingly unstoppable run at the beginning of the season, winning 9 races in a row. Alvaro and Ducati would have a near total collapse in the second half of the season, gifting the title to the great Jonathan Rea. For the 2020 and 2021 season, Alvaro signed for the Honda factory effort in World Superbike, in a move that seemed to be more about the paycheck than winning. Honda brought a terrible bike, and the move was a complete disaster, amounting to only 3 podiums and 9th and 10th in the final standings. Alvaro went back to Ducati for the 2022 and 2023 seasons. He absolutely clobbered the field for both seasons, easily winning both titles. Ducati clearly brought the best bike by a huge margin, but he performed flawlessly with 43 wins for both seasons. In order to tell the remainder of his story, there's something you need to understand about Bautista. The main one being that he is very, very small. I don't mean that he's petty, I mean he's physically very light. He weighs in at an incredible 127 pounds. But why do we care about that? During the 22 and 23 seasons, a former MotoGP rider named Scott Redding made a number of complaints about the advantage Bautista had due to his weight, and pressured the sport to do something about it. If you aren't very familiar with motorsports, being lightweight is a massive advantage. It affects everything. You go faster down the straights, it's easier on the tires, it saves fuel, and the list is endless. For the 2024 season, World Superbike implemented a ballast rule due to Scott's complaints. The system works based on a reference weight of 176 pounds. For every 2.2 pounds lighter you are, you must add 1.1 pounds of weight to your bike with a max of 22 pounds. Now, these measurements are converted from metric to standard, which is why the amounts seem pretty random. The long and the short of it is this. Alvaro now has to ride with a penalty weight of 22 pounds, bringing him to roughly 150 pounds. This means he still has a considerable advantage over the average rider, but not nearly as much as he had for the majority of his career. His results for 2024 and 2025 went downhill dramatically, where he finished third both years with only 4 wins total. He had no wins in 2025. Now, Bautista did not take this weight penalty well at all. Ever since then, he has campaigned against the rule relentlessly. He had a couple of arguments ranging from discrimination to safety grounds, which we'll go over here. One of his main arguments is that it's difficult for him to ride these big, heavy bikes, and he experiences heavy fatigue by the end of the race. The most recent argument that he uses is that it's an issue of safety, but for the life of me, I can't figure out how that weight penalty would affect safety at all. I reached out to the Reddit community to see if they could expand on this argument, and pretty much everyone said that he's full of it. As I mentioned before, he's been fighting this rule tooth and nail. At the end of the 2025 season, he put together a petition to try and get it removed. Now here's where it gets interesting. Every single rider on the grid signed the petition that they should get rid of the rule. Now, one of the bike manufacturers, Yamaha, got wind of this and made their riders remove themselves from the petition. This is more than likely the result of Yamaha having the weakest engine in World Superbike, and of course they'll act in their own self-interest. Here's my take that no one asked for. Every single premier motorsport series has some type of balance of performance. MotoGP has it, F1 has it, IMSA, endurance racing, rally, almost every single sport has some form of it. And don't forget, I am biased. I'm a bigger guy at around 225 pounds, and of course a guy like me wants a ballast penalty. I've heard people make the argument that heavier riders should just lose the weight to get down to his weight. I think that would be a fair argument if he was at a more reasonable weight, but there's no way I can get down to 127 pounds. My body just isn't built like that, and if you saw me walking around at 127 pounds, you would call me an ambulance and demand that they take me straight to the hospital. It's just not reasonable. And keep in mind, he still has a pretty significant advantage. It's just not as ginormous as it once was. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the audience. What do you guys think? Is it a form of discrimination, or do you think it's unsafe as he says that it is?